Hello everyone and welcome to Baking with Q. Today I'll show you how to make buttercream frosting. You will need 1 cup measure, 1 teaspoon measure, 1 tablespoon measure, an eighth of a teaspoon measure, or you can just use a quarter of a teaspoon measure and estimate about half. You will need a hand mixer, a large bowl, 1 medium-sized bowl, and 1 small bowl. You will also need a sifter. Your ingredients will be 3 tablespoons of milk, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, a half cup of butter, or 8 tablespoons of butter, or 1 stick of butter, chopped very finely, and you also want it to be very soft, room temperature. I also added an eighth of a teaspoon salt in there with it. You also need 2 cups of powdered sugar and another eighth of a teaspoon of salt. The reason why I put an eighth of a teaspoon in here and an eighth of a teaspoon in there is because it kind of helps mix around the salt. So there's not just a lot of salt in one area and a little bit of salt in the other. There's going to be salt all over there, and that really brings out the sweetness and the flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and start sifting my powdered sugar. Okay, that's perfect. So now what we're going to do is start to cream our butter for at least 5 minutes. And this will start getting it all white and fluffy and perfect for the buttercream. Okay, now that you notice my butter, I've been whipping it for approximately 7 minutes now, just checking my clock. And now, after you whipped it, you can start adding in your powdered sugar. You just want to add it in a little bit at a time. Just keep mixing it until it's all incorporated. That's my first addition, and you're just going to keep adding in a little bit of powdered sugar until it's all incorporated. Okay, now I've added all my powdered sugar to this, and now I'm going to add in a little bit of my milk and my vanilla mixture. What you don't want to do is you don't want to mix it on high. You just want to mix it on low, because if you mix it on high, the liquids will go flying everywhere and make a huge mess in your kitchen. So just, once you get it slightly incorporated, you can start mixing it on high again. And then, I'm just going to keep adding it in. It'll probably take about maybe 3 to 5 transfers of milk. So I'm just going to add a little bit of milk at a time until it's all incorporated. Okay, I've mixed in all the powdered sugar. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab a rubber spatula. I didn't mention this in the tools before, so I'm sorry about that. But you do need a rubber spatula. And if you don't have one, then you can use a knife and just try to get around these sides. What you're really doing is just trying to scrape the powdered sugar. You're going to get the bottom of the bowl scraped too, just to make sure you get all that powdered sugar incorporated. And then, when you incorporate it all and it's all nice and smooth, we will be back. Also, when I added in the milk, when I got to that last addition, it looked like it was starting to break. And what I mean by that is it looked like it was turning into rotten, spoiled milk. And that's because we added a heavy dose amount of the liquid ingredients. So, what you want to do is you want to keep mixing this until it's nice, light, and fluffy. Okay, it's been about another 5 minutes getting it this consistency, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it up like this. And if you notice, it's kind of stuck to my beaters. You see that? I'm going to do that again. And I pull up, it makes a nice stiff peak, and it stays in my batter. And my beater, I mean. That's perfect. So what you're going to do next is take your finger and just drag it through the buttercream. It'll feel kind of like whipped cream a little bit. And then you have to taste it. Oh, that is so good. You gotta make this today. As soon as you see this video, you gotta make it. Okay, this is how you make buttercream. Now mine still have a little bit of lumps, that's why you do that taste test. And I'm gonna mix it a little bit for about 5 to 10 minutes longer, just until, you know, it all comes together and it gets really thick and fluffy. And that's what you really want. So I'm gonna do that for about 10 minutes. You don't have to do it for 10 minutes, but if you want a really good, you know, fluffy buttercream, you have to kind of do it for a long time. But it's perfect if you just kind of get the butter, beat it a little bit, then add the powdered sugar a little bit at a time, and not really beat it. It's still okay. It just won't be as good as if you beat it for like 30 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna start beating it for 5 more minutes, and I'll see you when I get back. Hi everybody, we're back, and we have our buttercream. We mixed it for about 15 more minutes. That was just make sure it's all aerated and fluffy. Now, like I said, you don't have to mix the butter for that amount of time, for 5 minutes, and then let's just get your buttercream really white. You don't have to. It'll keep it nice and yellow, and it won't be as fluffy. You know, for me, I mixed it about like maybe 45 minutes, but if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. You can have a nice regular type of buttercream that's yellow. And I forgot to mention, you can use clear vanilla extract if you want. Instead of using that darker kind, you can use clear and make it even more white. And that just makes it easier to color. That makes it a nice brighter color. So this is the consistency it should make. It should be, stick your spatula in, and when you pull up, it's going to be about a stiff peak. So just shove it in there and fold it out, and it'll be a nice stiff peak if you notice. That's what you want. And now we can put it into our piping bag or a plastic bag and decorate the cupcakes. Hey guys, and welcome back to Baking with Q. I'm going to show you how to make my homemade butter cake recipe. Butter cake is kind of like a pound cake if you don't know what it is. You will need a ½ cup plus 1 tablespoon of butter, a ½ cup plus 1 tablespoon of cream cheese. The butter is unsalted. You will also need 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 cup plus 1/4 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, 4 eggs, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Firstly, you're going to want to sift together your dry ingredients. Perfect. What you're going to want to do next is mix together your butter and cream cheese until lightly incorporated. You do not want to overmix this batter. If you do, you're going to get a hard, awful cake, which is like making bread, and we don't want to make bread. So what you're going to do is you're going to stick your beaters in here. I'm using a hand mixer. You can use a stand mixer if you'd like. I'm just going to mix that slightly. All done. What you're going to want to do now is add your sugar in slow portions. So you're going to want to add a little bit of your sugar in. And mix that lightly. And then you're going to want to keep doing that until it's all incorporated and properly mixed. Now if you notice, there is some butter over here that's not incorporated. That's fine. We're going to mix it through when it's done. just keep adding in small portions of sugar because we do not want to overmix this. If we add in all that sugar, it's going to take a long time to stir it in. And we're not making bread. If we whip it too much, it's going to be hard and gluten will be created. So what we're just going to do is we're going to keep mixing it in little portions like that until it's all incorporated. Okay, that's all done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do an alternating method now. This is an alternated creaming method because we're creaming the butter and the cream cheese and then we're adding the sugar. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our rubber spatula here and just add in about 1/3 of the mixture. And mix that in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add the liquid. And the reason why we're doing the flour, liquid, flour, liquid, flour is because we don't want that liquid to oversaturate our batter and it'll look like cream cheese or curdled milk or whatever you want to call it. And that's not what we want. So after we add that 1/3, we're going to add about 2 of our eggs. So mix in about 1 and stir that up. Mixed up 1, and then we're going to mix in the second one. Now once you get that mostly incorporated, you're going to add in the second 1/3, which will be about half the remaining flour in your bag, or in your bowl, I mean. Then you're going to mix that in. Remember, you're not over whipping it. You just want to mix it until it's incorporated. Okay, so now I'm going to add my eggs in again. And I'm going to keep doing that with egg, flour, egg, and then flour again, ending with the flour. So we're going to add the last of our eggs, and then we're going to add the rest of our flour. Okay, let's get to the mixing part now. Perfect. What I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video is that, 1, I have a wet towel to help me clean off anything that's dirty. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly do that. Okay, it's all done. So I also forgot to mention what you're supposed to preheat your oven to. You need to preheat your oven to 350, and you're going to bake these for about 35 to 45 minutes. Okay, now you're going to scrape down the sides of your bowl like this and just get all that flour mixture incorporated in there. And you're going to take your beaters, put them in the sink. And now what I'm going to do is show you how to fill your cupcakes. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to fill my cupcake liners. What you're going to want to do is have a big spoon like this, bigger than a tablespoon. And you want to take this amount and just drop it into your cupcake liners, like that. This will make anywhere from 12 to 24 cupcakes, depending on what cupcake liner size you're using. So mine are pretty small, so it might make 24, but if you're using some bigger ones, then those might make 12. Just going to fill up the rest of them. And when I fill them up, I'm going to go ahead and put them in the oven. When your cupcakes are done, there are many ways you can tell. One is that you'll take your finger and you'll push on the top and it'll spring back. Push and spring. Push and spring. You can also take this toothpick and push it into the middle. And if it comes out with moist crumbs on it, you're good to go. Now, if you don't have a toothpick, you can always use a butter knife and just shove it in the middle and pull it out. And as you can see, there's moist crumbs, but nothing real major. And in the next video, I will show you how to frost them. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 3 of Baking with Q. Today I'm going to show you how to make my moist fluffy white cake, which we'll divide into 3 different colors for our checkerboard cake. You will need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of unsalted butter, 2 1/4 cups of granulated sugar, 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, 7 large egg whites, and 1 cup of whole milk. It has to be whole milk or else you won't get a nice rich cake from the fat. So let's get started by sifting your dry ingredients. Okay, that's perfect. So now what you're going to want to do is cream your butter and sugar for about a couple minutes or just until there's small grains of sand in the bowl. I'm using a hand mixer, but you feel free to use a stand mixer. Okay, all done. This is what it should look like. It should look like little grains of sand in here. You're just going to squeeze that together and it should feel slimy and greasy. This is what it looks like. Then you're going to mix it again until it's nice and white and fluffy and it spreads out nicely. And we'll be back when that happens. It'll probably take about another 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, that's perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add about half of our salt in. And then add the other half into our dry ingredients. All done. So now what we're going to do is add in about 1/3 of our dry ingredients. There we go. And then stir that in. Okay, once you add that in, you can add in about half of your liquid ingredients, a little bit at a time. So put that on, and then add in about half of your liquid ingredients. Okay, I'm going to add in a little bit more because that wasn't quite half of them. That's half. And then you're going to mix that up. Now the reason we're doing dry, wet, dry, wet, dry is so that our batter doesn't curdle and look like scrambled eggs or cottage cheese. So we're going to add another 1/3 of our flour, or half of the rest of it. And then mix that in. Okay, now we're gonna add in the rest of our liquid ingredients. A little bit at a time, so add in a little bit. And we're just gonna keep doing that and adding in our little ingredients and then our dry ingredients and then we're done. But don't add in all your liquid ingredients at once. Just add in a little bit at a time until you get the rest of them in there, and then add the rest of your flour all at once. So I'm gonna add a little bit more of my liquid ingredients, and I'll be back when it's all mixed. Okay, that's all done, it's mixed. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our wet towel to clean off any area that's covered in a mess. All done. So now we're going to take our rubber spatula and scrape around the sides of our bowl just to make sure we get it all done. So now I have my side scraped, and then I'm going to mix it again until all that flour is incorporated. Now the flour is mixed in now. So what we're going to do next is divide it into 3 different bowls to make 3 different colors for our checkerboard cake. Hey guys, we're back to show you how to divide your batter. You'll need a 1 cup measuring cup, and you're just going to scoop 1 cup out of your batter and place it into one of your bowls. And you're going to do that for all 3 of your bowls. Don't worry, it will make a mess on your cup measure, but we'll clean it off with our wet towel later. Get it completely full and put a cup into your other one too. I'm just going to keep going around with the cup until they're all filled with batter. Okay, now I got all 3 of my bowls evenly filled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape around the side of my bowl that had the batter in it, and I'm going to put a little bit into each of my bowls. Now for your last bowl you're transferring to, you can take up your bowl and you can kind of scrape out your bowl and push it into there. That's all cleaned up. So now we're gonna color the batter. Okay, we're back. We've scraped out the inside of our bowl, and we're going to add the food coloring. I'm going to use blue, yellow, and pink today. So you're going to squirt a little bit of blue in the blue one. You're going to add a little bit of pink, red to the red one, which will be pink. A little bit of yellow to the yellow one. This is a white cake, so it does matter to add that extra yellow food coloring. And I'm going to stir all these up, and I'll be back once they're all colored. Okay, so I colored all my batter, and now I'm going to put it into my baking pan. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to flour your baking pan. Here, I just put a little bit of flour in the middle of the baking pan, I'm just going to spread that around the outside of the baking pan so that the whole surface and sides are covered in flour. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to bang all the extra out, and then you can dump that out. Okay, and I'm going to do that with the rest of my baking pans. Okay, so I put the batter into my prepared baking pans, and we're going to bake it at 350 degrees for about 25 to 35 minutes. Hey guys, this is how to know when your cake is done. You will need a toothpick or butter knife. Take your toothpick and insert it into the middle of your cake. Pull it out. If it comes out with some moist crumbs, you're good to go. You could also do it with a butter knife. Take your butter knife and push it down into the middle. Again, if it comes out with moist crumbs, you're good to go. This cake has been cooling for a while, so there's no moist crumbs on my toothpick. It's because those moist crumbs have cooked. Okay, well that's how to know when your cake is done. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 5 of Baking with Q. Today I'm going to show you how to depan a cake. You will need your cake, 2 squares of parchment paper that are just bigger than your cake, a butter knife, and a spatula. The spatula is optional. You're just going to go around the edges of your cake pan and make sure, if you notice on the bottom of the edge down here, there's a little bit of a crunch, and that's from extra cake that's burnt on. So you want to break that to make sure your cake comes out nicely. Okay, so now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your wax paper square or parchment paper square and put it on top of your cake pan, and then just take it and flip it over. Now, if you notice when you lift it up, it'll feel a bit heavy. That means your cake is still attached to the pan. So what you're going to want to do is you just want to keep banging with your hand on top of the cake pan, or the bottom. And then you want to lift it up. I can feel it's still a little bit heavy, so I'm going to keep banging. I notice it's still a bit heavy, so I'm just going to keep banging, and I'll come back when it's all loosened up. Okay, that's done. Now if you notice, the bottom of your pan will have a little bit of extra burnt on cake. Just take your spatula and scrape it off. Now this is optional because you can just rinse it off with water, but I like to eat those extra little pieces in there. Tastes really good. And that is how to depan a cake. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 6 of Baking with Q. Today I'm going to show you my homemade red velvet cake recipe. You will need 3 3/4 cups of self-rising flour, 2 1/4 cups of sugar, 3 eggs, 1½ teaspoons of vanilla, 1½ teaspoons of vinegar, 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, 1½ teaspoons of cocoa powder, 2¼ cups of oil, 1½ cup buttermilk, 3 ounces of red food coloring, or 6 tablespoons. You're going to want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. I third this recipe because the full recipe makes 3 9-inch or 8-inch cake pans. So let's get started by sifting your dry ingredients. Okay, that's perfect. I wanted to let you know that I am including my sugar as a dry ingredient. I have my egg and my vanilla together. I have my oil by itself, my buttermilk by itself, and I have my vinegar by itself. Everything else is in the dry ingredients. So now what you're going to do is you're going to add in your buttermilk, your oil, and you're also going to add in your other ingredients like your egg and your vanilla. And you're also going to want to add in your vinegar. So now what you're going to want to do is cream that together, just until a batter forms. Okay, that's perfect. So now what I'm going to do is add in my red food coloring, just until I get to nice, lovely red color. Okay, so that's not quite red enough. I'm going to add a little bit more in. And I'm going to stir that until it gets nice and red. So I'm going to keep adding my red food coloring until it gets really nice and red and bright. Just to let you know, this will darken in the oven and get more colorful. So don't add too much red food coloring. Okay, that's perfect. So now, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to fill your cake pan. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to fill your cake pan. You're going to take your batter. I already pre-greased and floured my pan. You're just going to pour your batter into the pan like this. Okay, we're back. We filled our cake pan, and now we're going to put it into the oven for 45 minutes to an hour. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 7 of Baking with Q. Today I'm going to show you how to make my homemade fondant recipe. If you don't know what fondant is, it's like edible Play-Doh or edible clay, but it's made out of sugar, so it tastes good. It's also known as sugar dough. If you have had fondant in the past and you do know that it should taste really bitter, don't worry about this recipe, because this recipe is marshmallow fondant and it's going to taste great, and it's homemade and you know what's going to go into it, and you know there's no chemicals. So let's get started. You will need 2 cups of powdered sugar plus 1 tablespoon, 1 cup of marshmallows, half a tablespoon of water or 1½ teaspoons, a bowl for the extra tablespoon of powdered sugar. So let's get started by sifting your dry ingredients. Okay, that's perfect for this bowl. So now you're going to add that tablespoon and sift it in to your other bowl. Okay, we're done with the sifting. Now we're going to microwave our marshmallows for 30 seconds. Okay, we melted the marshmallows, and now we're going to add our half tablespoon of water. This will make the marshmallows nice and liquidy. So just stir that in. And it also helps the marshmallows to be not so sticky. If you notice, not sticking to the bowl as much. Okay. Make sure you let the marshmallows cool almost completely before you're done. That way, it doesn't melt your rubber spatula. So now, what you want to do is you want to put on some gloves. I'm going to do that now. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to add in a little bit of our powdered sugar. You just take your spatula and reach in and grab about a spatula full. Add it into your melted marshmallows and just stir that in. Okay, now we're just going to keep doing that until powdered sugar is all mixed in. So now that I've got it all mixed, started kneading the powdered sugar in. And this is ready to be used for anything you like. Now you can double this recipe or even triple this recipe if you want. But it does make a mess, a little bit of a mess in your bowl. So now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the tablespoon of powdered sugar and put it into your hand, just to make sure that it doesn't stick to your hands. So now you're just going to knead all that in. Okay, that's perfect. If you notice, when I stretch it apart, it stretches a little ways and then breaks. That's perfect. And you're ready to go. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 8 of Baking with Q. Today I'm going to show you how to roll out homemade fondant. You will need one homemade fondant recipe that I showed you how to make yesterday. Firstly, you're going to want to take it and knead it back until it gets nice and soft and pliable. Because if you made it yesterday like me, it will be all hard. You just want to keep rolling it, kneading it until it's nice and smooth. So now it's nice and smooth, and you're just going to want to keep rolling it and pushing down on one side until it gets all the creases out of here and all nice and smooth. So now it's all nice and smooth, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lay it down like this, and you just want to take your hand, put it on top, and twist it. If you notice, like, it's the bottom nice and smooth, and you're going to want to put the other side down and keep doing that again. After you've done that, I'll show you how to roll it out. You're going to need your rolling pin, and you're just going to want to roll it out. Do not go over the side. If you go over the side, this will happen. It'll be all uneven. This side will be nice and thin, but this side will be very thick, and that's not what you want. So then you'd have to get it back nice and smooth. So now I'm going to show you how to roll out fondant the right way. So now what you're going to do is you're going to just roll from the middle out. Roll. And then after you start rolling on one side, you're going to want to flip it over and turn it. Okay, you're going to want to do that again. You're going to want to flip it over and then turn it. What you want is a 1/4 of an inch thickness, or even thinner if you can. So now you're going to want to flip it over, and then you're going to want to rotate it. So if you start out with a circle when you're rolling it, it's easier going to be to get it to look like a circle when it's done. Starting to get there. If you notice, it's getting very thin. But just keep rolling it. I also want to show you how thin it gets before it rips. It gets actually see-through before it rips, so. Also, you want to do this on your fondant map. If you don't have that, make sure you're doing it on a non-stick surface, or it will stick to your surface and you won't get a nice smooth fondant. It'll just make a mess, and that's not what you want. So if you notice it's starting to get see-through here, once you get to the end, you can start going over the sides a little bit just to make sure they get all thin. Notice it's starting to get see-through. By the way, most of the brand I use is the Wilton brand for like my fondant mat. But my rubber spatula, I get it at the dollar store. Now it may want to stick to your rolling pin. If it does, now watch this. You can still pick it up and it won't rip. If you handle it correctly, it won't rip. It's kind of like pizza dough. And that is how to get your fondant see-through. Now I'm going to show you how to make it nice and just thin, good size for good thickness for covering a cake. So you're just going to smooth it up again and then make a nice flat bottom again. Once you do that, you're just going to want to roll it out again. So start in the middle and just go back and forth over it, and then take that off and flip it over and then rotate it. We want to do that again, so flip it over and then rotate it. And don't go over the edge. Like I said before, if you go over your edge, it'll get all uneven. And that is how to roll out your fondant. You want it at least a 1/4 of an inch thickness. If you can get it even thinner, then that's perfect. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 9 of Baking with Q. Today I'm going to show you how to make fondant roses using the fondant I just showed you how to make. You're going to need 3 fondant marbles, roughly the same size, and also you're going to need a fondant little snake or oval, the same size and amount of these little balls. just twice as long. So now what you're going to want to do is you're going to lay these out on the bottom of your plastic wrap. And then fold the top half over. So now you're going to want to flatten the top half of the fondant. I'm doing the worm first. Just flatten the top half. Do not flatten this back, because you know that on a fondant rose or any rose, there's always thin petals, thin tips, and large bottoms. So now you're just going to do that with the rest of them. Just flatten the tops of each of them. Okay, so now you're going to unfold this plastic wrap, and you're going to pull up your worm shape that you flattened the tip of, and you're just going to start at this side and make a small curl first, and then keep going so you get something that looks like this. So now you're going to take your fondant petal, one of them, and put it overlapping this little pocket here. So cover that up like this. And then you're going to add a second one underneath this pocket right here, underneath this last petal. Sorry, I just had to take off my gloves because my hands are getting really sweaty. So now let's get back to making a rose. You're going to take your third and final petal and slide it underneath your second petal and just wrap that around until you pretty much, if you notice that it does not cover the whole rose, this side, so what you're going to want to do is unwrap this one, pull that off, and slide it under a little bit less, and then rewrap it. And then you're going to want to do that again and take your petal, stick it under that one, and then do it again. Make sure it's covering the whole thing. So now you can just take your thumb and fold back this petal, and then this petal, and then this petal. So now you have your fondant rose. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 10 of Baking with Q. Today I'm going to show you how to store your fondant. You will need one fondant recipe that I showed you how to make the other day, some vegetable shortening, I'm using Crisco, and now you're just going to smear that all over your plastic wrap. The plastic wrap is what we're going to use to store this in. Once you get it all greased, you're going to want to put your fondant directly in the middle of your plastic wrap and take one edge and cover up your fondant like this, and then take the other edge and overlap that one, and then take this edge and fold it over again, and take this edge and fold it over again. Next, what you're going to want is a baggie to put your fondant in. So I'm just going to open that up, and I'm just going to drop in my fondant. And just twist the top of it, make sure that no air is in there, airtight, and then you're good to go. Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to bring your fondant back. If you're like me and you make it the day before, it'll be all hard and not workable. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take a little bit of Crisco or vegetable shortening and then put it on top of it and just knead that in. Okay. Once you get that all kneaded in, you're good to go. I just want to show you the consistency should be at when you're done with your kneading. It should look like this. It should be very smooth and soft, and if you really just feel like Play-Doh or clay, and it should just, if you notice, it's just so nice and supple, very soft and pliable, and that's what you want. Make sure it's not greasy, because if it's greasy, that grease will leak out and run all over your cake. And that's pretty much how to bring your fondant back after it's been sitting out in your plastic wrap overnight.